Welcome back to the show, everybody. And I thought I'd begin talking, as I do, a little bit about my personal travails and just I'm trying to create a vision of, what I'm doing with my chess. And as I state at the beginning of this show is mostly a selfish show. It's about me trying to come up with how I'm supposed to be studying and to keep myself honest with it. And I feel like if I'm just honest with people out there and honest with myself, hopefully somebody else out there will get something out of my little pathetic journey here. Um, so, first, before we talk about chess, I want to say a thing that I'm going to have to do is get back into shape, physical shape, and this COVID thing has really thrown it all off because the only time I'm outside and able to do stuff, is with the kids because I got to deal with the kids half the day, and yeah, that's been really challenging. I stepped on the scale for the first time in months. Bad news, definitely the heaviest I've been. I don't know, something like 12, 13 years. So that was a really sad thing. And I think it's a little bit like, they talk about the freshman 15, you go to college and then you're kind of in a new environment, you start putting on weight because of anxiety or whatever. That definitely happened to me here. And I bring it up because I got a break from the wife and kids for 3 days. It was incredible. And I was able to sleep and I was able to exercise some, and it's just a totally different world. And one of the things too about sleep that I realized that's really important is like I wasn't sleeping well before. I was constantly not sleeping well. And that lack of sleep definitely, you can't, your mind's not being able to process any of the heavy lifting you're doing on the chessboard when you are able to study. If you can't sleep, I'll just speak for myself. So that was like a huge revelation. It's kind of like, so before I even can dream about getting good at chess again, it's like these two ogres on my back that are kind of interconnected, right? We've got the lack of sleep plus the being out of shape, and they kind of work in tandem, right? Because if I can't sleep, I'm probably not going to get in shape. And if I can't get in shape, it's going to be harder to sleep. So it's a major problem. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and before we plunge into this chess, I want to say, like, two things. The Las Vegas Chess Festival got announced for September. That was like a very big surprise to me. They might be a little early in making that declaration, but still, just the fact that they made that declaration was like, oh, maybe I am going to get a chance to play kind of soon. I don't know if I can play that event, but if that event goes forward, then we're going to go, and do other things as well. I thought it was just going to be like round robins and stuff. You go to the National Open, that's viruses everywhere in that room, you know. So there's that, and the other thing that's changed since I started this show is kind of this also on the horizon is the ChessDojo thing has just been taking off, and it's great, but it's also consuming more of my time. And the chess person I do not want to become is the person who doesn't have time to study themselves and is just producing content that they don't really care about or even understand, right? So, like, I need my own time to do my own study, to create my own ideas, and then I hope, right, if I then create some content, whether it's a YouTube or I'm teaching people, there's more substance behind it. Anyways, I'm going to stop my little screen here. Let's go to this uh, game. This is an amazing position. As I said in the last week, I started doing this practical Rook Endgames. The first time I read it, it was simply too hard for me. It was simply too hard. And I wasn't ready for it. In a sense, I'm not even ready for it now. And my takeaway is just like, this is the kind of thing I needed to be doing before, and also that most people are also just not doing it. It's just because it's so much easier to do stuff like openings and whatever. Openings and whatever. Easier to do those things than this kind of work. Okay. Now, what I have here is I don't know if this is going to work out, but I got an extra window here with Stockfish connected to my computer because I think people are right, especially Sam Hamilton, who's sometimes on the show, saying, no, you can't be using the chess.com computer. It's not good enough. So I've got this thing on my computer set up with the Stockfish. Is it going to be better? We'll see. Also, it's a little weird because I have the chess.com window open, and so I'm going to be like maybe touching different windows. Okay, this particular position that we have in front of us here is from the 78 World Championship. Very important game. The match is something, I think it's 5-4. Karpov is leading. It's first to six. They're playing like Fischer rules back then. And so obviously if Karpov wins, that's over. And if Korchnoi wins, he has a shot. So the first thing I want to do is just take you a little bit through this game so you can get a flavor of the struggle, where many of us have been in positions like this before, but not all of us play on, in the sense that it's easy to become disheartened in a position like this and think, especially when you're facing strong opposition, that you have no chance to actually break Black's defenses down. And what we're going to see is that if you're able to play man chess, especially with the Macho Rook endgame, you are just going to be an incredibly dangerous opponent. And I'm saying that not just as like a chess teacher, as someone who's trying to convince you to study Rook endgames. I'm saying it for myself because I know that I've been in this position before, and I have not persevered in really trying to squeeze this kind of position. And I think if I do make a comeback, it is going to be being able to squeeze positions like this. So here we have the beginning position. And, well, let me just tell a story. The one reason I got inspired to ask the computer what it thought, and in fact, let's turn the beast on here while I'm talking. I'm going to turn this thing on. One reason I got inspired to turn the beast on is I talked a little bit about this position with the kids at Greg Shahada's U.S. Chess School. Really beautiful thing. All the top kids, I don't know, a lot of the top kids in the country are there. And anyways, I gave him a choice of things, but we didn't talk too much about it with F5 and Rook A2. And this kid kept screaming at me like, Rook A2, Rook A2. And I think what was going on was that he had plugged it into the computer, and the computer maybe was saying Rook A2. No, maybe I'm wrong. This computer is thinking about it. And, it's funny, too, when you look at this, is that Korchnoi going to go into hectic detail on this position, the most detail I've ever seen in any Rook ending. And by the way, I have not processed it. I have spent loads of hours on this endgame, but I have not processed all the ins and outs of it, and I don't necessarily understand it even that well. But the idea of Rook A2 is pretty simple, and the way I think I can express it is this. If you go Rook A8, then we can transpose back into what could have been the game with this position, and here we have this amazing variation that's all actually forced, where we're now going to win. And Korchnoi spends a lot of time on this position as well, but basically, it's bad news because we're threatening both d6, and if you take, then my king is going to get very active on b5. Okay, and I don't want to spend too much time on that. What I want to say, though, is that is the idea, and we could have got in the game, if you imagine, if Black had played Rook A8, we would transpose with Rook A2. So what I'm going to try to do, this is really for my own benefit. By the way, okay, let me back up. This book, as far as I know, Korchnoi didn't use any computers. And one of the reasons the analysis is so intense is because back then they were doing adjournments. So they were thinking heavy thoughts about what to do. And the game was adjourned somewhere around this F5 move. So the computer, right, is giving just a rough evaluation, and it says actually the line that it wants this line with Rook A8 that Korchnoi thought was lost. Another thing that's funny too about you'd think that Korchnoi is going to end up making a proclamation about how this game is, whether it's winning or drawing. Rook A8, he says, is lost, and that's what the computer wants. So the first thing I want to do is say this computer right now isn't being that helpful, okay, at least in terms of how I understand the position. But we're going to walk it through a little bit, and I kind of want to see, like, well, if the computer understands anything, or is it really such a position where Korchnoi gripped it with his mind better than the computer could, which, they say the computer can't understand the Rook endgame, and so that really might be true. It's not, for example, seeing that when we go, it is seeing actually, oh my God, look at that, it sees all the way to D5, that position I saw, right here, it's seeing that position. So it is seeing that, and it's claiming that's going to be a draw. Holy smokes, man. All right. So the first thing I want to know is if I go Rook A2 in this position, Rook A2, the reason Korchnoi didn't do it is because of King E6. So let's ask the computer how it feels about that. So Rook A2, King E6, A6 takes, Rook takes. See, now I got to do on both boards. This is where it gets a little weird. So A6 takes, Rook takes, and now like the machine wants Rook C8 or King D5 says they're the same. To me, King D5 seemed absolutely abysmal because after Rook A7, you got to worry about mate. Let's go ahead and do this machine's line. King D5, Rook A7, and it's saying we're going to survive after B4. My sense was that G5 was going to win this thing. Let's go ahead and ask the beast. Interestingly, so far, the computer, which, when we looked at, for example, weeks ago, this is how I got inspired to do this computer thing. We looked at the Kasparov positions. The computer was shooting holes in all of the analysis that Nikitin had done. And so far, I'm not sure I get it. Now, here's G5. So what is the point of G5? The point of G5 is if you ever take with the F-pawn, then Rook E7 is going to be mate. So here we go. H takes, F takes, B3, holy moly, GF6, Rook B2, Rook B7, excuse me, B2, Rook B7. Here, let me put this on the board just so that I can kind of get my head around it. B4, G5. This is what a human is afraid of. They're afraid of getting mated. B3, GF, B2, Rook B7. And now it's saying Rook H8, and I got nothing. Man. That's stunning. It's stunning for a variety of reasons, because it's saying, it's actually, okay, let's take back all the trash I was talking about the computer. And honestly, this book is full of variations like this that are just mind-bending, because the first thing that I would think here is that Rook D7, King E6, Rook D6, and then you go win the B pawn, that would have to be winning. So I'm going to say here, 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 King C2. Oh, it feels like it's got to be winning. All right, let's go look. All right. Rook h8. Check to the miserable king. Check. King f7 forced. King c2 forced. Rook h3 forced. Now, we could take with a b pawn, or we could take on c6. And the computer's saying it doesn't even matter. Rook b3, g5. Rook b6, rook d3, king b2. Let me just update this so people aren't losing their mind here. King c2, rook h3, here, 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 here. And I'm going to lose my pawn, I guess. Is it true, though? I'm just not sure I understand all this. See, this is where it gets really mind-bendy. This is what I'm talking about. It is a complete mind bend here. If I go rook b6, rook d3, and then rook d6, g4, and he queens with check. Oh, man. This is what I'm talking about. This is the Macho Rook ending. If you can analyze this kind of thing and kind of get it a little bit, oh man. All right, I'm going to try to process in just human words what just happened over here. So rook a2. Now, the first thing is the computer says that the rook a8 variation is also a draw. I have to say, I was really like, let me put it this way. When I read the Nikitin analysis, there were a bunch of variations where I said to myself, no, that's not going to work out. You know, you've missed it. You've missed something. And like when I said, i.e. Nikitin's missed something, and I feel like it's definitely wrong, and I would check with the computer, and, you know, I was right. This time, for the most part, I'm going through this analysis. Maybe I'm being too passive about it. I'm not really seeing any holes in the analysis. The computer, I guess, just shot 2 holes in the analysis. One, that rook a was losing, and then 2, that king e6, that variation with king d5 was holding. By the way, Kostya is going to get interviewed by Orlova, or at least Orlova, later, and that's going to be really cool. I don't know if Kostya is watching. I will say I'm not sure I'm going to last until 5. I will definitely be there, though. Daniel King approached Korchnoi at his old age and analyzed it with him. Well, here's the thing about everybody doing this kind of thing with Endgames, Paul in New Jersey. I feel like they're making mistakes too. It's very important to see. They're making a lot of mistakes that they acknowledge, and the process of analysis is really what's going to make you into an animal, because you'll be able to see deeper. And the thing about seeing deeper is honestly just seeing the ideas, right? It's the ideas that are going to be the most important. Okay, now that this analysis engine, put that away. Okay, so let me see if I'm going to try to put this again in human words. That rook a8. All right, so let me go through this again. So king c3. The computer was giving this variation. Excuse me. What's going on now? Oh, right. This is all wrong. So, rook a2, rook a8, f5, snip, snip, and then we do this walk. It's all amazingly forced. All right. So here we go again. I'm going to put this position up on our little screen here. And we're going to go for it here. Here, here, here. And let's let this thing think for a second. C takes d5. King takes b5. Rook d8. And I think this is brutal. So I think Korchnoi assumed that Rook g2 was winning here, or Rook d2. But no, in fact, just that happens to me. And I am dealing with the push of the d pawn. Dang, wrong again. Okay, this is really amazing. So right, again, wrong. It's funny. I was really trusting the guy. I think, by the way, that this is the most detailed analysis of any Rook endgame I've ever seen. It goes 20 pages deep, and multiple variations are gone into. And I think the human mind is just missing basic stuff. I saw nothing of this, nothing at all. I basically was so moved by the analysis of Korchnoi made. I mean, I really didn't have that many points of contention. Rook a2 over here was one of them, and that was partly motivated, like I said, by this kid shouting at me that Rook a2 was in fact the best move here, and like I thought maybe he turned the computer on. Maybe his computer said something different, of course, but the stockfish is saying that it's saying it's all a draw. Okay, let's do this a second. And Rook g8. Now, that definitely feels right to me, this Rook g8 move. Okay, now, I'm going to try to put in, first, before I even ask the computer anything, I want to just put in human words what I think is like the critical variation after Rook g8. Rook a2. Checked the miserable king. King e4. Snip. a6. And now, check this out. Check. Check. And you got to go back. But the drama is clear, is that your... now, again, let me just say something obvious. You can't win the rook because AB is going to end the game after you take the rook. So, you got to do this. And this position was analyzed out to a draw, but it is really hectic. And so I want to just, I want to turn the beast on here. Also, that whole variation, I couldn't find anything wrong with it, but it would not surprise me if the computer found something obvious. Okay, so here we go. GF, Rook G8. And, right, Korchnoi here gave both Rook E6 and Rook A2. The computer is saying both are small advantage for white. All right, let's go Rook A2 and see what it says. Rook G3. So far, we're good. So far, Korchnoi is golden. A6. Check. Check. King D2. Snip. You can check first and send my king to H3. It would go to C3 anyway, right? Rook H3. King. Rook D3. Check. Rook D4. King D5. This is all in Korchnoi's analysis, and let me put that on the board. So, oh man, here we go. Oh. Yeah, God, that's intense, man. That's really involved. So, all right. Rook h2. Check. Rook d3. Check. Takes. Here. Rook d5. Oh, wow. I mean, it's a really impressive, actually, with this one in particular, that, yeah, I mean, this is more than 10 moves off the beaten track, and at least the computer's saying, dude, this is all for real here. So, uh, okay, so Korchnoi gives this amazing position that I think the computer is going to find, but basically it's a position where black gets the F pawn and we're going to promote, but then our king is not back in time. So let's go through. Rook F4, check to the miserable king. King E8. All right, here we go. Here we go. C6, check. King B6. Rook F1. Rook B7. Holy, this is all there. This is all in the analysis. Okay, here we go. Check to the miserable king. Here, 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 here. Korchnoi had all of this. It's all there, man. It's all there. Dang. Okay. So now, check to the miserable king. And, right, it was, here's where it gets interesting. I'll see if I can remember this. Check to the miserable king. And Korchnoi gave king a7, which the computer doesn't even want. But let's look. Rook here. Pawn. We are going to queen. King d7 is how I remember. I'm going to ask the computer in a second. And then snip. Or you can actually go up one and then snip. Right, you can go up one and then snip. And then, right, this is going to be a draw. If you were, and then let's say f5. If the pawn, by the way, there were no h-pawn, then rook b5 would win because you could only play f4, f3, and then when f3 comes, you go rook b3 and snag the thing. That's kind of like a known endgame trick. But here it's all over. All right, so let's see if that is what... Oh, okay, here we go. The computer's changing its mind a little bit. Let's go. C7, king d7, king b8, king e6. I think d... Amazingly, he's saying on king d6 you lose. And then, okay, so here we go. This is really twisted. Let me go back a couple moves here. So he's saying, the computer's saying that if you go king d6, which was Korchnoi's move, somehow you're losing that thing. That's hard for me to understand. And that king e6 is the better move. Now, let me just say the obvious reason why Korchnoi would do king e6 or d6 instead of king e6, because that's the natural move for shouldering the king. All right. Oh, man. So, king d6 shoulders the king. All right. So, my question is, first of all, why in the Lord's name would king d6 be that much more wrong than king e6? So here we go. c8, rook takes, king takes, and he's saying it's made in 35. All right, I'm just going to do what Korchnoi said. So f5, why is this made? Rook, oh, I get it. You lose a tempo because your king has to go to e6, and then somehow the king gets to do drama here. So let me just try to do this in human terms here. So, oh, no. All right. All right, here we go. All right, I think I'm going to pause the computer. By the way, you turn on the computer, boy, it'll start tearing up all your it'll turn up, it'll just one of the reasons actually don't like studying too much with the computer is simply because the fan starts going crazy. All right, so let's see if I can understand this. C8, rook takes, king takes, f5, rook b5. So we're going to assume that f4, rook f5 ends the game. So then this happens. King c7. And let's try, right, the king is going to get in, like here. And then you can't play h5 here. And the idea from Korchnoi was that the king would get in. Let's see if this is true. King f5. Now we could play king d5. But let's just say here, here. This looks like it's winning here. So snip, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, totally losing. Okay, maybe I'm understanding something here. So king e6. I have to actually double check. In my memory, it was king d6, but I could be wrong about that, as I am about many things with this endgame, because the computer's saying, all right, this thing is in fact a draw. Man, oh man. Okay, really intense analysis. I'll tell you what, when I post this to YouTube, and I'll put a little marker, whether I was right. I'll check the text. Okay, let's move on to the other positions. I have a lot of questions with this one. I could talk about it all day, but there's another one I want to ask. I call this the live computer review. What does the computer think? So again, let me give you a little backdrop. Let me just say something about this match that pertains actually to my own chess improvement. First of all, Korchnoi was ancient when he played this World Championship match in 78 and then, 81. He was already an ancient dude. And nowadays, the ancient dudes aren't really getting a shot anymore. Though there is still, the Anons of the world. Also, Karpov, I feel like I don't know, let's say 20 years ago, people were talking about Karpov as one of the top players in the world ever. And these kind of, not no one, but people don't understand how strong the guy was, because partly when he turned into an old dude, everybody was beating him. And, it's like you're a great band and you keep playing past your prime or something like that. Right, this book is called Practical Rook and Endings. I will do a book review, just a quick one online. I do think it's one of the, I don't know if I want to call it the best books of all time, but it's like one of the books where I feel like my own chess, anyways, is really expanded more than hard to think of another book where my mind is like getting loopy, going through these variations. And Rook Endgames, honestly, are pretty democratic, because just because you're an IM or GM doesn't mean you understand Rook Endgames. There's loads of people who haven't appreciated Rook Endgames yet, and because there's a different kind of game. It's not really like other parts of chess. It has its own little rules. Okay, so like I said, let's just give you a flavor of this. And this is Karpov doing his thing where he's going to squeeze just incredibly. Now, this was not part of the World Championship match. This was a normal-ish tournament. And again, it's the kind of position that I am going to need to play well when I come back, where I've got some small edge. And honestly, you go through games like this with a computer, and even if it feels like there's a narrative of like white's a little bit better, the computer will inevitably find screw-ups by white and chances where black could have got in and yada yada. But this is the squeeze that we've all been looking for. All right, so there we get the pawn. And maybe king d6 is a mistake and c5 is an exclam, because now the pawns are going to be really nasty against the black king. And I think what Korchnoi told himself was that the bishop on b7 will now be able to get out. And that's true, but there's other problems. So check this out. There's bishop a6. This is a real squeezer here. Okay, so there it is. There's our position. And this one as well is really tight as to whether or not white is going to win this thing. And this one, I think, in contrast to the other one, where right away you had some guys doing a German analysis, the next couple moves, Korchnoi describes it as being seconds on the clock kind of thing. So let's get into it here. Let me pull up this board with the computer. And Korchnoi said e5 is forced, and I think that's true. But let's just take a look first of all about this one. Okay, e5 forced. All right, I'm fine with that. So here we go. e5. Check to the miserable king. King c8. Now this will also be interesting. There's king c8 is the human move in the same way that king d6 was the human move for the shouldering, because just when you're imagining the blockade of the c pawn, you want to go to c8. The reason to go to b8 is that when b5 comes, if you're on c8, b6 will create an automatic threat of rook c7 and then connected passed pawns in your toast. For example, king c8, b5, if you try to go after the g pawn now, I play b6 and it's an immediate crusher threat of rook c7. But it would not be the case if your king were on b8. All right, so the first thing I'm going to ask the computer is it a big difference between king b8 and c8? In his analysis, Korchnoi thinks that black can hold barely with either one. And let's just see what the beast says for a second here. So e5, check the miserable king. Okay, and there it is with king c8 or king b8. Now the idea, by the way, this is where, while the thing is thinking, I'll say the beauty of looking at rook endgames is what it does teach you about the other parts of the game is that it's all about king and rook activity. And definitely white's main idea here is to play b5 and to activate the white king with things like king b4. Okay. It is saying king c8 is better, but it's saying some weird things I don't understand as well. Okay, it's actually saying something really interesting, and I'm gonna pause this for a second and then try to say what I mean. All right. In the game, king c8 is played, and then b5 is played. And one of the questions that I had about this was, now let me just show you what happens, and I'll try to explain my question. So b5 takes, Karpov plays king b4, and we're going to see he has a very clear plan. It's probably mild time pressure, but a very clear plan of how to really annihilate black. But it's going to become complicated. So my question is, yes, b5 is the right idea, but also, are we really forced to do it right away? And could we instead play h4 first? And what the computer is doing, in its totally weird way, of course, it's saying that after king c8, what white should do is play rook f6, king c7, and h4. Now, why is it a difference that I want the rook on f6 instead of f7? Not totally sure. Maybe it has something to do with me protecting the pawn here. I don't even know yet. I don't even know. But the question is the same, is that, and Korchnoi doesn't get into it, was b5 too soon? It's the right idea because you definitely, I think, want to do it. You want to play like king b4, a5, king b6, and then set up that mating net of c6. So, all right, I'm going to ask the thing about h4 now. And we'll see, maybe it makes a difference with rook f6. I don't know. So I want to put h4 on the board, and we're going to see what the beast says. All right, king c8. Again, it doesn't like h4 here, but we're just going to look at it. And maybe we'll go back. We might figure, maybe we'll understand something. So rook h8 is what it wants. And my understanding was that b5 was going to be the main move. Snip, king b4, rook h4. And it's basically saying we've got nothing. Now it's talking about, let me just show you what it's saying. h4, rook h8, b5, takes, king b4, rook h4. Now, one of the human things that goes on in the game, too, is that Karpov does not want to take on b5. He wants to go king a5, b6, so that the rook can't check from behind in Philidor fashion, right? With like rook h1, rook b1. So to honor the concept, I want to play king a5 and just understand why that's not working. So king a5, and then he Philidors me with rook h6. Right, he's going to wait for me to play c6. All right. And maybe this is something totally, one of the things about this book, right, is there are loads of variations that he doesn't even talk about, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't understand. I don't know why we're not talking about this variation. And so anyways, that's why I wanted to talk about a variation like h4, because I didn't get it. Now, let's see what the computer's on about with rook f6, king c7, h4, and see if that makes a difference. So here we go. Instead, rook f6, king c7 is forced. And now I want to do, it wants g4, which is really weird because that's kind of what happens in the game too. Funnily enough, check it out what it's doing. It's thinking about the game continuation with rook f7 and g4. And so, by the way, there's two moves, of course, for white to advance. There's g4 and there's h4. h4 is more human because your g2 pawn is hanging out to deal with the f pawn. All right, I want to push h4. I have a feeling it's the same deal though. Totally the same deal. Man, oh man. Okay. Well, in that case, let's go to the game because the computer's all on it here. Dang it. This is really intense. Okay, so we got to go to the game. b5 takes, the computer is saying this is all correct and that Korchnoi move is correct. And the intense thing about rook d2 that in time pressure anyone could miss is that the intention is to mess with the progression of the pawn with rook c2, kind of Philidor style. Oh, all right. So let's see what the computer says. Now, in this position, all right, I'm going to actually, before I even look at the computer, I'm going to try to understand the weird thing that went on with the analysis here, if I can even understand it correctly. It went like this. King a5. Here. King b6. God, this is intense. This is mind-blowing to me. So we've got some serious threats, obviously. King d8. God, I don't know. This position is really freaky to me. c6. Oh man, this was like mind blowing to me. Rook c2, I think, and then no, this isn't even the position. So this is where it gets so hard for me that it's hard for me to remember. So Rook d2 happened. Then g4 came. Right. Now, the question is on king a5, though. Okay, fair enough. I do remember this. In the game, Karpov plays g4, which we can debate, forever. Let's make sure I understand, like, what's wrong with king a5. He's saying rook g2, king b6, king d8, c6, rook c2, and if king b5, rook h2. Let me put that on the board. That was, in fact, in the frickin' business here, where like if king b5, then you take. That was actually in the analysis. Okay, so let's go back to rook d2, and we're going to ask the beast. Now, some people I know aren't going to be into me doing all this rook endgame stuff. But let me just say this while I'm doing this. Obviously, I'm some old guy, and I'm not going to improve that much. And this is just me trying to, have a couple good tournaments before I die. But this is the way, like, there's a lot of easy material out there on the internet of, like, cool opening this and cool opening that. But this is real chess here. This is the Macho. This is the real Macho, I think. And, yeah, this is the real deal. So, right, the computer's seeing all of these lines that Korchnoi found, and it's stunning to me. So, if we got, for example, h4, black has to find this crazy idea, b4, and it goes like king b6, b3, hard to imagine. I don't even think I understand that move. No b3. It's got to be rook c2. I see, honestly, even here, I'm just like losing my mind with complications. No. Yeah, it's got to be rook c2. c6, king d8. Do I understand this? No, but b3, b2 is coming. Oh, man. All right, Electro Knight says, posture check. I gotta hydrate. That's all totally true. Thank you so much. Man, oh, man. All right, you guys, I'm going to show you this. The thing I want to take away from this, though, is, there's this whole thing that I'm sure you guys have heard about the woodpecker method and yada, yada. And it's a new concept to me, but where it really applies for me is if I'm able to do this book, it's not even that long of a book, but it's really intense. If I'm able to do it a couple times and, absorb the analysis and then come back to it, I think I'll really get it. At the moment, you can see, I'm honest about it, I'm struggling with this position. I went through this several times, and then it's really hard for me to even appreciate it, in hindsight. With the benefit of, not in hindsight, but, just coming back to it, it's very hard for me to appreciate it. This is the way the game went. It's a total miracle draw. Rook g6 is, in fact, a mistake, and maybe this is the last thing I want to ask the computer about. In this position, after rook g6, okay? And this is one of the points I was like, this was written a while ago, but maybe, of course, no, I did have some kind of computer thing, because this next move for white is really bizarre. And it's rook h7. And the point is that, let me see if I can put this into human words. If you play king b7, king e8 comes with tempo. And things will be going like this. c7, snip, c8, rook f6, and the pawn gets to f2, and the queen has to babysit the pawn. And dude says that's probably a draw. Okay, so in this frickin' position, if you play rook h7 first, the deal is going to be that black still has to play king e8. And then when I play king b7, I have this threat. And the threat means you're going to have to take it. Excuse me, not... How is this going to go? Right, if you take the thing, then it is toast. Oh, man. So even here, I'm having trouble. But I'm going to ask the computer what it thinks about this madness and if it's really true. So we're going to get the position in question, which is rook g6. Will it find rook h7? It, in fact, finds rook h7. King e8. And then on king b7, you got to go around. You got to go here. And it's saying he can hold it. So I'm just being honest with you guys. This is the kind of thing that I feel like, more than openings or whatever the frick, if I can win this kind of position, obviously I'll never win it all the time, but if I can push in this kind of position, it also means that I can, like, kind of a little bit like Magnus, and I'm sure Magnus, you know, well, even if he didn't, to what degree he studied this kind of thing, obviously some, but the guy is great at finding his way through these kinds of positions, and it enables him to play equal-ish positions, and that ability to play equal positions really frees a person up, especially with white, because then they can be dangerous, and they don't have to have the computer telling you you're a little bit better for them in their opening preparation. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Check out Kostya doing his interview with Miss Orlova coming up. I'm going to be there. I'll just be in the chat, and I'll post this thing on YouTube. I'm going to move on from here, but I will post a review of this book as being one of the primary ways to improve your chess. And then I'll see you next week. I'm going to be moving on myself. I think I'm going to be going on to do Kasparov's, or Nikitin's second book on Kasparov, and I'll probably be talking about that adventure next week. Also, hopefully, some updates about what tournaments are going to happen and that kind of thing. And I've allowed myself to do a little bit of blitz, contrary to all of my philosophy, but just a little bit is okay. I play Title Tuesday. If I have the ability to, I want to try to do it again. All right, till next week, everybody. Bye-bye.